At least 70 cities have had protests in the past 11 days over the killings, Peekskill being one of those cities. Since the fatal shootings in Louisiana and Minnesota, people across the nation have been protesting, and there have been at least 98 protests since July the 5th. The raw videos have sparked outrage, mixed emotions and feelings, questionable behavior, spread throughout social media. How many are exhausted by seeing the images on media? So you all as well, I told someone, I gave someone free therapy lessons today, a free therapeutic session. I said, watching too much media will cause depression, so cut back on how much you watch. Then I gave them my fee, right? And that's the reality. Professor Paul Butler says a lot of white people are truly shocked by what these videos depict. I know very few African Americans are surprised. But these videos, as stated by Reverend Graham, are smoking gun evidence, and we know the names. Philando Castile, Alton Sterling, even what was called on film, the South Carolinian high school student was flipped backward at her desk and dragged from across the floor. James Blake, retired tennis star, mistaken for a thief there in Manhattan. Sandra Bland was arrested, later found dead in a jail cell. Walter Scott, the list goes on and on, right? Tamar Rice, Eric Garner, Michael Brown. Let us not also forget those officers who were killed as well. Dallas Senior Corporal Lauren Honorans, Michael Crow, Sergeant Michael Smith, Officer Brent Thomas, and Officer Patrick Zamiraban. So tonight we really come to bring merger, to bring reconciliation, because we want our city to remain peaceful. So we have a hefty panel tonight of professionals, practitioners, experts, those who work in the academy and those who work in the community. And so I'm going to ask, and we want to definitely be time conscious. We're going to have some reflections from our panelists.
I'm Bill Sales. I'm a retired professor of Africana Studies out of Seton Hall University. I spent 38 years there as most of us chairman of that department, and 45 years total in higher education. I'm also a veteran of the civil rights and black power movements, having been involved in the leadership of the largest campus-based demonstration in the history of the United States at Columbia, later on involved in the open enrollment campaign in the City University of New York, and throughout my life subsequently, I've been involved in mobilizations that some people consider to be radical. I'm also a father of 5, and I'm married to an educator here in Peekskill, and certainly I'm a black man. And all the things I've said, the most important thing is that I'm a black man in 2016.
My name is Sam North. I am the interim chair. I always like to put the emphasis on interim. You know, I've told the story before. Martin McDonald, the president of the NAACP back there, pressed me into service, and I was very, absolutely willing to get on board. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to be there, and I want to thank Reverend Graham for providing this wonderful space, and Pastor Young for being willing to moderate, and for everybody who's up here on the panel, and of course all of you for coming to be here, because the thing that I think the most important thing that we need to speak about tonight is the community aspect of everything that we're trying to do here. I'm interested in talking about, and I know some other people here on the panel probably will be too, expanding and having a more aggressive community policing program here in Peekskill. But I want to emphasize community, because it doesn't work if we just expect the police department to do everything. We have to be involved. Community policing means the community is there and involved and is doing some of the work that it takes. We can't put all the pressure on the police department and expect them to work miracles. So just, you know, to the elephant in the room, since you mentioned being a black man, I am a white man, and I want to emphasize that point because, you know, I have two adopted children, one of whom is a black boy, so I have a personal connection to the issue of raising a black boy in America today. But that's not the most important reason why I think it's, you know, why I'm happy to be representing the NAACP here tonight. We as white people have to recognize that we have a very important role to play. First, in recognizing the problem and admitting that there is a problem and not telling people all the time that all lives matter, because we know that, okay? We understand that all lives matter. But some people are worried that maybe their lives don't matter as much. And that's something that we need to listen to. We need to hear that as white folk. And then we need to do something, right? All of us, because that's what community means. So I've said too much already.
Good evening, everybody. My name is David K. Jones. I'm the New York representative of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. Blacks in Law Enforcement of America is an organization of black law enforcement professionals. Whether you're police, corrections, sheriffs, court officers, or even civilians that work in any law enforcement department, you can be part of the organization. Our main goal is to continue to build that bridge between law enforcement and the black community in particular. A lot of times you do not see black law enforcement speaking out on issues because the media does not, they do not portray us in that way. They do not invite us on different talk shows to talk about actual issues that's going on in our community and the relationship with the police department. But we do the best that we can, and thanks to social media and different outlets, people are starting to ask black law enforcement, you know, what is our opinion on this? You know, and I think that I always tell people, black law enforcement, we're 3 degrees of separation from the victims in the black community when issues like this come up. Either we know the victim, we know somebody that knows the victim is a family member. And 27 incidents in New York, black law enforcement has been the victim of questionable police shootings. So we know it very well. And we are out here on a daily basis trying to continue to build that bridge and give it a perspective from a black law enforcement perspective, because we are in the system and we are in the black community, and we continue to try to do that. And it's an honor to be here in Peekskill, because I used to live on 673 Harrison Avenue when I was 4 or 5 years old, and my mother moved and took me to White Plains. So, you know, it's great to come back to Peekskill and to talk about issues that I've been everywhere else, but I haven't been to Peekskill. This is my first time, and I'm honored. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Johansson. I'm the Chief of Police here in the city of Peekskill. Born and raised here in the city. I went through the school system here. I'm a product of the Peekskill School District. I live just outside of Peekskill in the town of Portland. My family still lives in Peekskill. My mom and dad, my sister, all residents of the city. I've worked in this department for close to 24 years, rose through the ranks. I really feel that I'm well qualified to speak of Peekskill, to speak of the police department and represent us here. I have some officers over here. Brandon Krutoff, who's the PBA president. Danielle Long, who this is her second day. And our field training officer, Kalia Carter. Also, I want to point out that I'm an adjunct professor at the Westchester Community College. So I interact with this community in a very different way, and one that I think is a very important way, and that's as being an educator. So I'd like to definitely speak of that tonight, and again, thank you all for having us here, letting us have a place at the table, and we really want to hear what our residents have to say, and hopefully we can provide some answers and some insight, and hopefully we can learn some things as well. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Reverend Mashana Davis. I am here in a dual role, dual capacity. I am the pastor of the Reformed Church of Portland Town, and I am a chaplain at the VA in Montrose. And so I'm here in both capacities, and I'm most interested in community spiritual health and what has happened in Dallas and recently with the other 3 additional officers who've lost their lives really concerns me as far as the VA and the military. Are we doing all we can to help our military personnel once they're back in civilian life? So thank you.
My name is Norman Pate. I am an elder pastor in training. I'm a recent graduate of New Brunswick Theological Seminary, and I had my Christian formation right here in this church many years ago. And I'm also a member of Pastor Mashana's church in Cortland Town, so I have the benefit of 2 beautiful women pastors in my life. And I just want to say that I also, am from this community, generations, and I think I can say that I grew up here multiculturally before it was a word. And even though I came as a little boy to this church all by myself, I lived on the same block as the Amy Zion Church. And I used to lay in the churchyard with my friends with their bicycles and listen to prayer meeting or choir practice. And they were laughing, but I wasn't. And my spiritual life is very deep here, and my connection to this community is very deep. And my friendships know no bounds, of all people of color. And I have come from a family that has bigotry in its background, and that I kind of pressed up against, even when I was a little boy. And my first teacher was at Hillcrest Elementary School in 1959. And Miss Booth was a beautiful African-American woman who got to know me and probably put me in the corner and said, "Stay there, you talk too much." And I do, but I really am here to talk about the love I have for this community and the situation that we find ourselves in politically and culturally in our nation right now. I am tired as well, and I'm outraged. Jesus he got angry. And justice and love are the main themes of who we are, especially in our respective communities. And so I'm glad to be part of this forum, and I have great admiration for our police community. I know that it's, we're a small urban village, if you will, but I think, it's not perfect, but there's been lots of good things in terms of policing, but we really want to double down in light of what's happening right now. And we don't want to replicate that here. And so I look forward to hearing from everyone here and what things that we should be doing going forward.
Hi everybody, my name is Minister Micah Benson. I'm a minister at Mount Olive Baptist Church. I'm also a social activist studying in seminary. I studied a lot on social justice, looking at the intersections between the racial dynamics in our country as well as the political and social dynamics and the ways in which we as a community can come together and do the active policing in ways that benefit all parties. So I'm really just looking forward to discussing exactly how we do community policing in Peekskill in our context, and not so much deal with that whole larger national conversation which you could talk all night about. And so I want to really discuss solutions and concrete things that we can do in our community to make everyone safer.
Come on, we can do better. Let's get our panel ready. And so tonight, I came out of my jacket because it was a little warm. So, but so tonight, want to be balanced and fair in our discussion, and we won't tolerate any attacking or berating. We're here to make progress and not to persecute. So the first question I'm going to ask if you would limit your answers to 2 minutes or less. Somebody said 30 seconds. Reverend said 30 seconds. The boss said 30 seconds. But I want to ask our chief who's here tonight, and glad he's here. How do you respond to black people who believe that the police, for the most part, are racist or out to get them?
Well, fortunately, no one's ever asked me that question in our community, and I think that that's important. I would respond that that's not the case. Police put on their uniforms every day with the intent on serving and protecting the community where they work. I know that's the case here in Peekskill. That's what I'll keep my answer to. I'm not going to discuss other departments. It seems though that when something happens in a department, it could be states away, all of us end up having to answer for it, which can sometimes be problematic. But I can assure you in Peekskill that our officers are here with the best interest of the community in mind. We've talked about, some of the panelists mentioned community policing. I think our department has been at the forefront of that for a number of years, going back to when I started. We can certainly improve, and we're always looking for ideas on how to improve. Most of the time we get those ideas from people like yourself, so I would encourage that tonight.
Dr. Sales, a specific question for you, I know that will help us to generate even more discussion from a historic perspective and from a criminal justice perspective. Are black people better off today than we were 50 years ago?
Well, first of all, let me say, I think I'm in the wrong place in this sense that I'm angry and outraged about the killing of black people in this country. I'm not particularly excited about singing Kumbaya or uniting with the police as police, all right? And therefore, at this point, it's very difficult for me to identify with the sentiment that this program is trying to generate. And I respect the attempt to do so. But I would say that what we're experiencing today is not new. There's always been a policing entity in the United States that has disproportionately killed people as a form of social control so they could be more efficiently exploited. One, during slavery, the Southern policing system originated in the slave patrols and the Patagones, who were to keep that population in slavery and in control. In the North, robber barons and urban political machines created police forces to keep the immigrants, the Irish, the Italians, the Jews in control as they came into the United States and constituted the northern working class. After the end of slavery, right, the police, through the institutions of Jim Crow, generated a convict labor system where they arrested people not because they were really criminals, but because they needed workers that they could work under slave-like conditions. More recently, right, we see the war on drugs, right, which then creates a rationale for the rapid expansion of police forces and the criminalization of black people. And then between about 1970 and our present period, a thoroughgoing militarization of the police, right, with tanks and all kind of esoteric equipment that we only see when black people hit the streets to protest injustice. So unfortunately, the normal relationship between the policing mechanisms of our society and black people has been one of institutionalized and structural violence. The difference today is that we have the technology to more readily disseminate actual pictures of this stuff in action than we ever had before. Let me just say that this is not simply a question of rotten apples or poor policing or better training. We're talking about the policing function, what the police are there to do. They are not there to represent our interests fundamentally. They represent the interests of the 1%. The people only control everything that there is of importance to control. They are their army. And therefore, the solution to the problem is not merely the reform of the police, but the abolition of policing as we know it, which of course can't occur without addressing questions of inequality, who owns everything of value, who's corrupted the political system, right on down the line. All right? So I have had relatives who were cops. One of my relatives got killed in a shootout. He was a real nice guy. He wasn't some bad, evil person, right? But he was in a bad, evil institution. And see, this is the point. An institution that attracts corrupt people. An institution that corrupts honest people, right? An institution which is instrumentality of some of the worst people who have ever walked the face of the earth. So, you know, I need to shut up now, but I just want to tell you that I feel strange being here, right? Because I'm not optimistic that short of some fundamental structural societal change, right? That empowers poor people, whether they be black, white, brown, Asian, or whatever, right? That we can really adequately address this problem.
Behind the professor, because I think that conversation has never happened in a forum where we talk about the actual creation of the police department as it refers to Africans and freed slaves and see, we're caught up in thinking that police was created in Europe in Robert Peel and all that, but that's not the truth. And how do we get to change? We get to change of talking honest truth. And we've been saying it along, but it's good to have someone to, how we change, we start from the beginning. And just like he said, the process of policing has to be torn down. We can have a great chief, and he's a great chief, but we also have to look at the institution. But this is the beginning, because you have to do it from community to community. You can't do it nationally because even our black elected officials are afraid to pass any type of legislation that will change the institution of policing. When they, after Ferguson, when they wanted to pass the bill to demilitarize the police department, only 7 members of the Congressional Black Caucus voted to demilitarize the police department. Only 7. And even the black elected official in Congress that was over Ferguson voted to continue to give police departments these type of military weapons to use on protesters. So it starts with you. It starts with the community to have conversations, not only with your police chief, but with your elected officials. Because these are the type of legislation that need to be passed. And the question is, if they're not going to do it, if the community requests it, and these elected officials do not do it, then y'all need to vote them out. You need to vote them out. The power is still with the vote, because if they're not going to represent your interests, you need to vote these elected officials out. We have to start looking at policies and procedures in order to change it. And we also have to look at how do we tear down the old continuation of the old policing methodology and rebuild one that actually, when Robert Peel said, the police and the community are one. Right now, it's not like this. We don't feel that. You know, the community doesn't feel it, and police officers, even the good ones, they don't feel it. But we also need the good police officers to be good 24/7 hours of the day and speak out when the bad ones do wrong also. So we also need that too. Thank you.
How do you respond, as a millennial, how do you respond to people who feel that the Black Lives Matter movement is a gimmick, unnecessary, and much to do about nothing?
Well, I guess the first thing I would want to do is to address that the Black Lives Matter movement is speaking, like we said, this is not new. These are instances that have a historical precedence in America. The prevalence of their images being spread across media increases our sensitivity to them. But the Black Lives Matter movement is in my mind, as a millennial, something that is essential because it's about the personhood and dignity of the person. And for many African Americans, whether you're old, whether you're senior, say, or 15 years old or 8 years old, you can watch TV and say, wow, is that me? There are 8-year-olds that watch and they see someone getting killed and they wonder, can that be me? And there are conversations that people have, and this is really a space for people to try to love self unapologetically, I think, is the best way to consider the Black Lives Matter movement, what that means for young millennials, is that there is a way that we are saying we will love ourselves no matter what, no matter how I see myself being seen by the world. I see the way others look at me, and I know that it is not the equal value that they look at other people with. And so I want to say that the Black Lives Matter movement is unnecessary or even possibly more problematic or bringing more problems than it's causing solutions or creating more divisiveness. I would say the divisiveness exists. It might be making the divisiveness appear to be more prevalent, but for a lot of these young Black people, they see that divisiveness whether we're talking about it or not. And so I think it's really more so an attempt to have a space for conversation about how do we really fix these issues and try to see each other with new eyes.
Very well, but we're going to have just open the floor for just a moment. Born and raised in Baltimore, having gone home and just becoming acquainted with the unrest there, some of the politics that are involved. But the number one complaint that surfaces is that throughout the country, throughout the nation, we see African American men unfortunately die in possession of law enforcement or whatever the details are, and there are no convictions. No convictions mostly, and so from a social justice perspective, can you speak to that? Where are the convictions? And what's happening as far as the justice system? Where's the breakdown? This is for you.
Well, I got 30 seconds for that. I want to echo some of the sentiments that have been said up here already. I think that these are difficult conversations, and part of me wants to turn the mic over to everybody here who came, because the idea here is we need to hear from the community, and we could talk all day. Chief Johansson, you're saying that Peekskill has been on the forefront of community policing. I don't doubt that. I don't know, and I'm sure that you believe strongly that you have done a great deal, and I appreciate that you admit there's always room for improvement. What I would like to say to that is, I do think it's important that we recognize, all of us, that there is implicit bias that we all have, and I hope that there is a part of your training procedures that recognizes the existence of implicit bias and helps officers to recognize that in themselves and gives them tools to address those biases. Because, I'm going back a little to that question about, if somebody came to you and said, your officers, we're all racist, et cetera, and so forth. And of course, I don't think anybody of yours is intended to say that. I certainly am not. But I am saying that we are, we exist in a type of racial smog that we all breathe, and that we experience perceptions of people based on that. And of course, African American and Latino young men in particular have been victims of that too often. And one of the things that I worry about a lot, having, as I said, a young African American boy, he's 9 years old, he's a child, he's a wonderful, sweet kid, right? How much longer before will he be seen as a child? I don't think that we allow young Black and brown Americans be kids in the same way that we allow young white children to be kids. And then again, that goes to this, I'm not blaming that on the police. What I'm saying is I'm blaming that on us. I'm blaming that on us as a society. I want to say it's society's fault because we are society. And we have to take ownership of that. That's the problem. We don't recognize that we are the ones that perpetuate stereotypes. We buy into them. We continue to foster them. Our media obviously is rife with them. And this is a problem. And it then leads to how we perceive African American and Latino young men as predators, as dangerous criminals, even as children, as young people in our communities. I don't think and both of you guys have already spoken to the fact that the justice system was not intended really to historically provide the same level of justice for all people. I mean, if you go back to the Constitution, one of the things I teach American history, among other things, and one of the things it says in the Constitution is that you, Sixth Amendment, you have a right to an attorney. Well, until 1963, if I'm getting my date right, that was always interpreted to mean you can bring an attorney if you can afford one. We won't stop you, right? And it was Gidding versus Wainwright, the Supreme Court finally recognized that led to an unequal situation in American society in terms of criminal justice. And the people that could not afford lawyers never got them, therefore they got convicted all the time. And obviously the system has not been vastly improved in terms of, creating equanimity and equality in terms of criminal justice application. There are many societal factors that are leading to that. But I will say this, I'm glad you brought this question up. And I know there's people that are more qualified to speak to this topic. This is the source of a tremendous amount of anger, legitimate rage in the black and brown community. And it should be a source of legitimate anger and rage in the white community. The fact that there is consistently this violence that goes, right? And I'm not saying that every police officer should be convicted. What I'm saying is that the due process procedures that are followed for the police, rightfully so, right, have not led to the kinds of convictions that we would hope, right, for. Now, whether they should have or shouldn't have is a question for everybody to consider. But what I'm saying simply is that is where a lot of the anger comes from. When we see this happen over and over and over again, and nobody seems to pay the price for it, except those people that have suffered. And again, everybody has suffered, and we're here to honor all of the lives, all of the victims of violence, including the police, obviously, right? We stand with our sisters and brothers in blue, but we also stand for the victims of violence in our communities, violence that is sometimes committed by police officers. And I think in many cases that violence has nothing to do with whether or not the police officer is a good or a bad person or racist or not, but there is a problem of implicit bias that needs to be addressed.
It's getting hotter. But I have a catalog of questions for you, but I really want to hear just a few from our citizens. You have come on such impressive numbers. Wow, hands are going up.
I'd like to address the issue of the Police Benevolent Association, the Fraternal Order of police unions, and how they participate in the brutality of black people. When you look at certain cities around the country, you had police unions who would circumvent punishment or police files the public having access to the files of police who brutalized the community. I mean, if you look at it, in New York City, you had the mayor, Patrick Lynch called the Mayor Blasio. He said he had blood on his hands in reference to the Eric Gardner case. You have in different cities where even if the police chief fires a police officer, the Fraternal Order of Police or the police union comes out against that he's a bad chief and gives them a no confidence vote. And they don't want him to be the chief anymore. And if you look at the case, as I pointed out yesterday, political prisoners of America is the police unions who make sure that these brothers stay in jail and never get out. And they rally their families. So I'd like to ask Brother Damon, and who I spoke to yesterday on the social media about the demilitarization of the police. He agreed with it. I'd like to ask, what's your opinion about this, these police benevolent associations turning over the police? Also, we can also Professor Sills too, and the chief here, he can answer it too.
Okay, everybody here? First of all, we have to understand that you also have to look at the collective bargaining. When you're talking about police unions, dealing with the discipline of police officers, I was a union delegate for Westchester County Cobra for 13 years, and I also negotiated, I was on the negotiating team of two of our contracts. So you also have to look at the collective bargaining agreement and what is the process of bringing officers up on charges and what they actually have within the contract. Of the officer's right to due process when he is actually accused of violating policy and procedure. Then secondly, you also have to look at the attitude of the union president. A lot of, and I'm specifically talking about Pat Lynch because there's a lot of statements that he has made in the past, and he continues to make statements that does not help the situation when dealing with police and community relations. We had a press conference in front of Pat Lynch's office when he said that the Eric Gardner family and different people that were killed by police wasn't New Yorkers. What police union president says that? So that gives a black eye to other police unions throughout New York State and throughout the country. Now, when you're dealing with the FOP, you also got to understand the FOP within New York is a fraternal organization. It is not a collective bargaining union. In other states, the FOP is a collective bargaining union. So you are dealing with two different issues there. But also the FOP is very well funded, and they have a lot of members, and they have political power. So you have to understand that. But black people in the black community, we have numbers, but we don't have political power. So the thing is to organize, and I would always say black community is the only community that does not have any say in how their community is policed, because we do not have political power, and we do not have the proper resources, or we do not have collective resources. We want our communities to be policed well. I don't think there's nobody in here that say that they do not need the police. I think everybody will agree that we need proper policing in the black communities throughout the nation. And the only way we could do that is how many people went to the City Hall meeting? Look at that. Every hand should have been raised in here that they never been to a city council meeting or sat in the city council. See, that's the problem. That's part of the problem. We don't play a role in the political process of our communities. Joe Madison used to say, there's some people that make things happen, people that watch things happen, and then there's some people that wake up in the morning and say, what the hell just happened? See, we don't want to be the people that wake up in the morning and say, what the hell just happened? We want to be the people that watch the things happen because we know what's going on, or we want to be the people that make things happen. And I think that's what's lacking in a lot of the black communities throughout the United States when it deals with policies and procedures that affect them, that affect the taxpayers. Y'all are the taxpayers. Whether we agree with it or not, law enforcement works for the community. You pay the taxes that pay our salary. You pay the taxes that give us the benefits. You pay the taxes that let law enforcement drive around in the cars to patrol the community. Everything comes from the community. Everything comes from the taxpayer. So why are people not more involved in the political process of their city? See, it boils down to that. It boils down to that because we are not involved in it. And if we don't be, I mean, black law enforcement has been saying this stuff for centuries. I started in 1990 and guys was about to retire. And the same thing that we're talking about now, they were talking about it in the 1990s. Nobody believed them because there wasn't no cell phones. Nobody believed that these incidents happened in the black community because there wasn't cameras all over the place. But now that we see it, I get tired of writing press releases. All you gotta do is change the name and change the date. I've been writing press releases about these incidents for 15 years. 15 years. I can't really find out anything new to write about it because it's the same incident. But we have to change it. It's up to the community. It's up to the community. The community has to change it. You have to say how you want your community policed. You have to say that you want police from the community. The chief is from the community. He should be respected for trying to protect his community. But then other communities don't have police officers that's from their community. And then, I'm sorry, I got a little passionate about that, but I'm in church. I'm sorry.
Good evening, Martin McDonald. Wow, this is a nice crowd. Thank you to the panel for being here. All of you. Sam, you're more than qualified for the instance today. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Give Sam a round of applause, please. Thank you to the chief. Pastor, doing a great job moderating fantastic questions. I am nervous because I'm really not a public speaker. It takes something for me to come up here and say what I have to say to you because I find myself in a position as being a leader in this community. And I'm up for the challenge. I just want to make sure that I'm trying to do it the best of my ability. I want to lead by example. By me coming up here telling you right off the bat, I'm nervous. I have to write down what I need to say. And once I get going, I can go anywhere with you. I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. Right? You think in division? Yeah, I'm there. I'm there with you, Dr. Sims. I kind of get it. I'm still struggling with so much. Let me read this statement for you. And it's basically why I have a hard time trusting police. Please respect my perspective, but I feel I'm being treated like the invisible man. I'm not indifferent to police officers that have lost their lives in the line of duty. But the other tragedy that goes with that is that the conversation about the killing of Castile and Sterling are now less important to mainstream. That's frustrating to me. That's frustrating to me. And my being a black man has allowed me to look back and remember when has there not been a time in my life when police brutality has not been a problem. It's always been a problem as far as I'm concerned. Always has been. Back in the 60s when I seen the dogs and the hoses turned on people on TV, that was a problem. That's brutality. In the 70s, I grew up in Austin, and my brothers and his friends were beat up and brutalized by cops. That's my reality. Going into the 80s, I had friends that I went to school with in Austin. Teddy Record was beat up unmercifully because the inspection sticker on his car had expired. His father was actually a member of either the school board or the village board at the time. At one time, he's a young black man, 23 years old, beat him so bad. Father was enraged, eyes swollen, beaten. What happened to the cops? Nothing. Herman Clemens, the same thing. Herman Clemens, they said he was trying to resist arrest. No, he wasn't resisting arrest. He had many witnesses. Nothing happened. So I got this problem with trusting the police officers. I respect them, but I know that when I get approached, like I'm hearing people in the media say, the doctor worked to save the lives. So, I'm saving lives. And I know that when I'm not a doctor, when I'm just being me, I'm a suspect by the police. Not that you intend that, but this is my pain. I just want you to hear my pain. I don't have to be right, I just need to be heard. I will always say that. I don't have to be right, just hear me. Hear other people, hear the voices of the people that are hurting the most. And I'm hurting. Moving Moving into the 90s. What happened in the 90s? Rodney King. We all seen it. This videotaping ain't new. We seen that. It was playing with black and white. What happened to the police? Nothing. Nothing happened to him. So now I'm 30 years in, and I'm living with this. I'm living with this on top of all the other stuff about slavery and Emmett Till and Medgar Evers. I'm living with this. The 2000s, Amadou Diallo shot 41 times. Sean Bell shot 50 times. How can a person not be angry and mad at this and hurt and enraged? Let's get a little closer to home. DJ Henry, a college student at Pace University. Come on, man. He's sitting in his car. He gets shot and gunned down by the police officer who said that he was threatening behind the wheel of his car. He said, move your car. He tried to move. He got shot and killed. Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. That's what hurts. That's what hurts. Military veteran. Marine. Inside his home. Life alert goes off by mistake. Cops come banging on the door. Tell them to go away. All this is recorded. Tell them to go away. I'm fine. They're going to come in and kill me. That's what this man said. What did the cops do? Open the door, you N-word. We're coming in. They said it. Nothing happened to those cops. I have a hard time trusting police, and not just police. Going back to the earlier question that you had asked, my criminal justice chair, why is it that these things keep happening with impunity? Now, I understand what you're saying, Dr. Sales, about getting rid of the police system, or I can't remember the term that you used. Yeah. But I also think that the grand jury system and the DA, listen, if I'm the DA, and I gotta work with the police all the time, and they're coming to me and I'm coming to them, and we're working hand in hand, and now all of a sudden I gotta prosecute my cousin. The grand jury system doesn't work, it's broken, it needs to be changed, it needs to be, but that's part of my pain. The solution has to be radical. And there's a difference between being radical and being militant. Some people might want to take that militant stance. We see that. I'm not promoting militants, but I am promoting being radical. Radical is an overhaul, a change of the system. The way things have been done, it's got to change, it's got to stop. That's being radical. Complete reform in the justice system. The blue ball in the grand jury, it has not worked and never will. Radical change it's got to happen. Community policing is good. Yeah, we need to do that. Just a sidebar. NAACP is part of the change. Is part of the solution. We are doing things. Might not be the way that you want us to do it, but we are doing things. And we're going to continue to do things. We got a bowling event coming up in 2 weeks. We've invited the police chief and his force. Come get to know us. Come work together. You know what? It's hard to really be angry with somebody that once you get to know them. Heck, you might know me now and say, oh, that's not really him. He must be having a bad day. Let me talk to him first. Rather than escalating it to a level where, I don't know this cat. He's big, 6'5", 220 pounds. I don't know. No, you know me. That's not me. So community policing does have to work. We're going to build more partnerships, the NAACP and the police department, so that these kind of things, we get to know each other. We have to get to know each other. It's relationships. I'll always say it comes down to relationships. In closing, sorry I lost my spot, but like I say, I'm nervous. I'm not, this is not my normal thing. I'm not a preacher, I'm not a politician. But we as men and women and people in this community, we have to stand up and let our voices be heard. That's part of the solution too. You can't just sit back. It takes a little courage, you gotta step up. You gotta say some things. You gotta join the NAACP. Yeah, you do. Because we need help. There's straightening numbers. So I'm hurt, I'm frustrated, and mad as HE226 about the injustice and the lack of concern for the black lives that have been lost. And we find ourselves here now, and I'm going through the righteous indignation. And I just want people to know I'm not an invisible man. In fact, one of my favorite pictures of the civil rights movement is the brothers that stand up there with a sign that says, I am a man. I'm a man. I love my kids. I love my wife. I love my community. I love my black skin. I love God. I love people.
Yeah.
And what I want for me, I'm a little selfish. Because whatever I want for me, I want it for everybody else. Thank you.
And let's show some love to our president. Powerful statement. As he stated, we are accepting members tonight. Membership chair in the back waving. But tonight, I think we all can agree that there's a positive consensus that tonight's discussion was rich and impactful. We can maybe ask one of them afterwards, but we do have to, the time has been spent well, quality time together. We've heard from our police, we've heard from professors, we've heard from the priestly community, we've heard from just about every segment of power in our community. Thank God that Peekskill is open enough to have the conversation. Thank you, Reverend Graham, for hosting and convening us. Let's give our host we want to close this out. But I just, if we took a vote tonight, it would be unanimous that another discussion would be is warranted and needed. And more, like I said, it was more kumbaya moments as well. What a wide range of perspective. And so at this time, we're going to ask if our host and convener, if she would come and give us some final words and a final blessing. This was courageous on our part, the minister's part, PAPA and NAACP partnering. How many can agree that partnerships, that's where it is. We need to partner.
I don't know how I'm feeling right now. I know we're not finished. And I'm glad you said that. And I'm not sure how many more conversations we need to have. We need to come up with a plan of action. Where do we go from here? We can't keep talking. It was important that we heard one another, that I heard your pain. President of the NAACP, it's important, Dr. Sales, that we heard your voice tonight. You are in the right place. Everybody's voice matters. Everybody's voice is important. I asked from the beginning that we would just listen to one another. It begins there. We've got to listen and we've got to honor and respect everybody's voice. I'm just honored and just delighted at the diversity at this table tonight. We did hear a wide range of opinions and experiences, but where do we go from here? And so I'm going to ask that the Chief of Police, if you would be interested in meeting with myself and maybe the chaplain of the police department, maybe some others, to come up with some concrete ways that we can build relationships and activities. You said something about, who said something about bowling? Who is that? Bowling, there's a bowling event coming up, but maybe there are block parties, and I know these are small things, but we've got to start somewhere building relationships. So I want to continue to plan, not just talk, but to plan. And I do want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I see some of our common council people, and you were supposed to be in a meeting tonight, but you're here, and I thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the members, we see you, we thank God for you, we thank you for listening tonight. To the members of this church, I thank you, to the session, for allowing this this discussion to take place here. I know this is different for us. I appreciate the opportunity to welcome the community in to have these honest and truthful conversations. Until we listen to each other, until we respect one another's story and hear one another's pain, we're going to stay right here, stuck right here. And again, we're fortunate in Peekskill. We've not had any problems yet, but trust me, it only takes one incident. And we want to get ahead of this. We don't want Peekskill to be like many other communities, and we do have to continue to pray. But we also have to continue to plan and walk together. And I challenge us, as somebody else, as you shared, I think it was you, your seminary instructor, say get to know somebody. One-on-one who you don't know. Look around when you get ready to leave here today and identify somebody that you don't know. And just talk to them for 1 minute, 2 minutes, maybe exchange telephone numbers so that you can build a relationship. We can start tonight. We can start tonight because again, there are 2 stories, at least 2 stories. And we heard at least 2 stories tonight. And for those of you who did not speak, and I know you wanted to speak, write a letter. Write a letter to the police chief. Write a letter to the president of the NAACP. Write a letter to Papa, to the faith community, so that we can continue to grow together, walk together. And I just pray that reconciliation is our goal, is our collective goal. We cannot bypass the pain. We cannot bypass the anger. We cannot bypass the truth. We cannot bypass the history. We cannot bypass the fact that structures have to change, systems have to change. So we need everybody at the table to make that happen. The Lord be with us and strengthen us. Let us walk together. Let us walk together. Let us walk together to the glory of our God.